Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've got a decently sized haul, so let's kick things off with this with Astonishing X-Men number 2, Astonishing Iceman number 2. Where we left off, Iceman, who had survived the Hellfire Gala thanks to his lover Romeo, was doing what he could to be a thorn on the side of Orcus. However, Orcus decided that rather than targeting him in less personal manners, they decided to make things personal, sending the elements of death after his mother. So we open with a flashback to Bobby's youth. It was to be about when his powers manifested, which did lead to some bullies attempting to attack him because of this. The elements of death are claiming to be working with the Sapien League, not Orcus, and stating that because Fort Washington, Long Island raised Iceman, well, the whole town has to pay. Bobby learns of this, goes to save them, and it is made clear in a memo that yes, they are stating that that the elements of death are being reprogrammed in such a manner so that they think that they work for the Sapien League. Iceman goes to save his mother. Helium of the elements of death is the one mainly trying to deal with or to kill, at least hold Bobby's mother prisoner. The rest of the elements are dealt with by Bobby's ice golems. Apparently, one of the main bullies from his youth is now the mayor. And explains that, Bobby explains to him that no, this is Orcus, not Sapien League, regardless of what they say. Bobby manages to deal with helium, by encasing helium in himself, going into orbit and shattering, leaving helium in a large enough chunk of ice by himself. And his mother apologizes for kind of just not exactly being as active in Bobby's life as she would have preferred to have been, and also said that she's proud of him. But Bobby falls apart and heads back to Antarctica. It is stated that the best course of action for Orcus now seems to be calling him the Cleaner. The Cleaner is an operative working the Bloom, currently dissecting an Inhuman. Well, I'll say the Inhuman is... Actually, I think that his it's quite possible that this Inhuman is still alive while being dissected. And Orcus has realized that Bobby is operating out of Antarctica. And so, well, they plan to burn Antarctica to the ground. And that is where the issue ends. On the one hand, I had to admit to being somewhat surprised that all of the other anti-mutant groups haven't just joined under the banner of Orcus. But if nothing else, it would give Orcus additional cannon fodder. I think what surprises me more than anything really is the idea of Organs considering them competition. But I can't say I'm even remotely surprised that they would utilize the other groups as a would try to make other groups look bad, however, so they look, well, better. Moving on, though, to our next book, we've got Children of the Vault, number 2. Where we left off, Bishop and Cable were trying to figure out what to do with the Children of the Vault after Bishop rescued Cable from Orcus's clutches. So we open in Buenos Aires. Remember the Children of the Vault. Martillo 131 is standing outside a drum and bass club. Something that he kind of wants to lay his hammer down and go in there and enjoy himself. He says that he catalogs all, everything. He watches through the wall and sees everything, and catalogs everything he sees for when it's no longer there to remember. But Bishop and Cable managed to take him down. And we get a brief overview of what has been going on with the Children of the Vault in since the last issue. Tomorrow Towns continue to pop up. Some of the children dealt with an invasion of undead Avengers from Earth 2149 in Haiti. But these undead Avengers were dealt with promptly, probably and swiftly. Nairobi was attacked by a Shi'ar faction with a battalion of brainwashed backup super guardians. The children took them down. A negative zone zealot popped up in Cape Verde. Shulagorth popped up in Mogadishu. Terax popped up in New Guinea. All were turned away by Children of the Vault. Cable manages to get into Martillo's head little by little. Get the information he needs. Meanwhile, Bishop has returned to the X-Mansion and is basically doing what he can about manipulating energies to keep from being noticed by the various surveillance systems that Organs has installed in the remains of Xavier's school. The reason he's there is to hit up one of Cable's weapon stashes hidden underneath the school's baseball field. The UN has granted the city has recognized the city as a sovereign entity and granted the Children of Tomorrow the official sanction to continue their works in the furtherance of humanity. There is some debate as to how the children should proceed, how they should, in fact, even have been going about this in general. Serafina represents the new way. It is basically about making the Earth, incorporating what currently exists as the Earth with the Vault. Whereas Capitan would prefer to simply raise the planet and start fresh. In Martillo's mind, Cable manages to defeat him and glean the information he's been looking for, he's been searching for from him. But the rest of the tournament have been alerted to this happening, and so turns out that the chair that won, Cable wasn't even actually there, and well, the chair that Martillo's been bound to this entire time has a small nuclear warhead in its base. But Bishop has arrived with weapons for Cable, for him and Cable, and we get one of those '90s panels I've seen in quite some time. Fitting that would be in a book focusing on Cable and Bishop. I have to admit, Cable looking like that reminds me of a panel from X-Men crossover Executioner song from the early '90s. While going after, in an effort to go after strive for the Mutant Liberation Front, Cable strapped on more guns than one would think were humanly possible for anyone to carry, and basically kind of looked similar to that, but that's a slightly more restrained version. Moving on to our next book, we've got X-Force number 44. Where we left off, Colossus had led X-Force into a trap. A trap that was being sprung by his brother Mikhail. Meanwhile, Domino had discovered that Colossus's girlfriend, whom he was tending the fields in the Savage Land with, was long dead and buried in those fields. So we begin in Moscow. Domino is doing reconnaissance for Sage, mainly looking. The plan is to try and find Deadpool, Wolverine, and Quentin, and Omega Red. But she gets into one of the bathhouses, interrogates a rather affluent Russian businessman about about Mikhail and what he knows. Turns out that Quentin is being kept in prison. Colossus is basically being treated as Mikhail's right hand, but Quentin's still having trouble with his powers and his clone body. Omega Red is being tortured. Wolverine is serving as a sparring partner to all of Mikhail's super soldiers. The businessman that Domino is interrogating has a ring. What it does, no one's entirely certain, but it appears to be important. Domino cuts the guy's finger off to take the ring, but Orcus arrives with one of their Wolverine bots. Domino manages to escape, but only just. There's a logbook entry from Sage on Colossus. The theory being that Colossus betrayed them. Discussion points. Colossus was appointed to the Quiet Council, making him privy to Krakoa's secrets and allowing him to influence political decisions. Colossus has seemed cold and distant, according to Domino, since returning from Russia with an envoy of mutant refugees, indicating a possible timestamp for the beginning of his betrayal. When X-Force jumped into the future to interrupt Beast's manipulation of the timeline, Colossus experienced a marked break in his behavior. He seemed, according to Domino, both confused and sad, but also himself again. He directed Domino to investigate his farm upon their return to the present, at which time he once again shut down emotionally. Evidence. Kayla. Her body was discovered hidden in a grave on his flower farm. Paintings. Aesthetic of pain and horror. Circumstantial admission of guilt in Kayla's murder. Constancy of Mikhail as a grotesque presence. Hellfire Golem. Colossus instructed X-Force to remain off-site, leaving the gathering unguarded. Following Orcus' incursion, Colossus led X-Force towards an unregistered gate. Conclusions. Colossus is being controlled by an outside force that somehow stymies or evades psychic detection. Colossus is colluding with his brother Mikhail. Colossus is potentially colluding with Orcus. If we find Mikhail, we find Colossus. If we find Colossus, we will find the missing members of X-Force. Black Tom is also back, and apparently he is speaking in the first person, and first person is singular. So while he can still tap into the veg, him and Krakoa ain't sharing the same skull and nerves anymore. At the hidden base in the Atlantic Ocean, X-Force's mobile base in the Atlantic Ocean. It turns out they have a no place tumor, which they'll likely be keeping the ring in for the moment. Also, Sage instructs no one to even mention Mikhail's name because they don't know what all is going on. Mikhail goes to visit the Chronicler, basically saying, hey, what if you also control... What if instead you stopped writing Colossus's story and picked up instead and started writing instead one of the higher-ups in Orcus. But the Chronicler does not appreciate this and is probably reminded by Mikhail that it seems the Chronicler lives and dies by Mikhail's word. But a kidnapping will be staged, and Colossus will be in charge of the mission. If Colossus is to die when the Chronicler dips his quill into his ink pot again, then that is how his story was meant to end. Interesting. I think I said this last. I'm glad it looks like we're finally getting an actual resolution to the Colossus arc. It's been building for some time now, and it's good to finally get a conclusion. Moving on to our next book, we've got X-Men Red number 15. Where we left off, Arakko was in a state of civil war. Genesis had returned and opted to retake Arakko as hers. And arguments against her were largely stymied before they can even be made, thanks to the Annihilation staff. So we open... The issue is interspersed with some flashbacks when it comes to the Fisherman. The Fisherman has merged with former Great Ring member Xylo, basically to ensure that Xylo survives. Will survive the attack made by Genesis and her forces. In the present, the realization is made that what's most likely is an attack on Port Prometheus by sea. But yes, we learn We do learn quite a bit about Fisher King's past. He was, for years, he had no name, no weapon, and he very nearly made an attempt on targeting and carrying his life. It was stopped by a mutant named Zora. Genesis leads her forces on ships towards Port Prometheus. Summonar is not exactly thrilled about this, but, well, his everything is, he's kind of shut up by the staff. One of the other Iraqi cuts his hand to feed the fish within the sea, instructing them all to fight each other to the death for the sustenance of Exotica's gift, thus making a giant fish creature, which attacks Port Prometheus. We discover that the secret seats basically of the Great Ring had met frequently with Solom, and in the present, Storm makes basically a giant iceberg and rams it through the fish creature's skull. While reflecting on his past, though, Fisher King remembered something when Zora was killed after the plot against Genesis failed. The flora within him betrayed him. Seemingly the last that Fisher King ever saw of his children. His daughter called him a weakling. But Fisher King insists that Bobby burn the remains of the fish monster. However, before that can happen, a massive gate grows from its body. A gate linking to Amenth and the White Tower, allowing the Horsemen to lead Genesis's 100 through a gate to Araco. And that is where the issue ends. Quite interesting. I do have to... Well, I have a feeling that Storm will become triumphant. Will end up being triumphant. We'll simply have to see what happens. Moving on, though, to our last moment, we've got Star Wars Darth Vader number 38. Where we left off, the droid uprising had managed to cause a strange malfunction aboard the Executor. Vader was requested by Emperor's Vizier Masameda to investigate, but Masameda's faith in Vader is lacking, and fearing that the ship is totally lost to the droids, Ameda has ordered the Executor destroyed. Vader's been doing what he can to deal with the droids, while the droids under his control are, well, basically trying to get the anti-droid failsafe back online. With it being pointed out that if they do, won't they all be affected as well? The commander of the Star Destroyer Task Force has been tasked with destroying the Executor, states that he served with Admiral Piet previously, and to the point where he was given an extra 4 seconds to an evacuation, and so he's going to afford the Admiral that same 4 seconds. But the failsafe is activated, and though first the an invasion force from the other other Star Destroyers attempt to retake the Executor. Their droids are, of course, compromised almost immediately, and their troops are promptly killed. One of the infection drones almost gets Vader, but is stopped by Zed. The failsafe is activated, and all the droids fall. But and Vader takes the reins of his droids and leaves the Executor. However, the droid scourge has made it to the other ships, and after 4 seconds, the Executor fires on at least the main ship of the task force sent. On Mustafar, Vader arrives on Mustafar with the remains of his droids, has them rebuilt, reactivated before he comes to speak to being he spoke with in the Revelations one-shot. And is reminded of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Vader is in need of power and control. But he's reminded that as a Sith, he should be taking, not asking. The droids have all been rebuilt and reactivated. However, Zed is corrupted and brings the infection drone that he snagged that almost got Vader to the lost Techno-Union droid factory of Mustafar. And that is where the issue ends. Things just got a bit more interesting, at least in this portion of the story. We already know that Vader is being is being seen as the perfect fusion of machine of droid and flesh. So that should make things interesting, to say the least. Anyways, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Mastodon, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. Big thank you to Patreon patrons and Lee. Big shout out. Thank you so much for your support. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.